All right, Marvel fans, MCU fans, Disney fans, whatever you want to call it. It was heavily requested that I do reviews for the Falcon and the Winter Soldier on BET. Well, wow, I'm sorry, Disney Plus. Sorry about that. I just finished reviewing some sisters videos, so I have BET on the brain. I'm sorry, but basically, I enjoyed it. I've watched the episode twice already. Just to kind of recap here, The Falcon and the Winter Soldier is a 6 episode season. So unlike WandaVision, which I believe was 9 episodes, this series is only going to be 6. However, each episode is going to be like double the length of WandaVision. I mean, this episode alone, not counting the credits, was about a little less than 45 minutes, which is great. And it was spectacular. I watched it twice because unlike WandaVision, we're kind of back to basics when it comes to action and storytelling, where it's not necessarily Mephisto everywhere. It's basically straight to the point. There are some mysteries in here, which will be hopefully either, I don't think completely unfolded by the time we get to the final episode, because remember, these MCU series were created to kind of expand upon characters from the greater MCU. Think of it this way. Think of these MCU series on Disney Plus. Disney Plus is the lake. All these shows like WandaVision, The Falcon and Winter Soldier, what are the upcoming ones? I think She-Hulk, Hawkeye, Loki. Think of those shows as rivers that flow from the lake, and then they eventually all end up into the ocean, and then the ocean is the MCU. Essentially, these series are connected to the MCU, so things that happen in these shows will eventually be brought over to the movies, just to put that in perspective. Also, I believe, and I just want to make sure here, but I remember when this particular show was first announced, that it was stated that each episode has like the budget of a film. So I want to double check my sources here, but because I could have sworn I read somewhere that these shows were going to be made with the budget of the overall budget for this series was $150 million. So I believe that each episode itself is about 25 million per episode. That's why this episode felt so theatrical. So keep in mind, when I do these reviews, they're spoilers. I don't do comic book stuff for my full-time YouTube stuff. So it's not like I'm going to do, here's a spoiler-free review, and then I'll put out the spoiler review, and then Easter egg. I'm not doing that. No, I don't have time to do that. So because I'm like you, I'm a fan. There are plenty of people I watch there are people far more qualified to do these than me. So basically, as a fan, I'm just going to kind of give you my impressions and a slight review, just to give you perspective. I'd suggest watching it if you haven't, so here we go. So this show takes place 6 months after the blip. So I do believe that this series, it does take place after the events of WandaVision, but also a few months prior to Spider-Man Far From Home. So what I love about the post-blip, is the fact that we're seeing how it affects the everyday little man. It's not all about, oh, wow, everybody got brought back, it's great. No, shit is crazy. In regards to like the economy. I watched this great video from another YouTube channel. I believe it was either New Rock Stars. Yeah, that's a great YouTube channel if you want like comic book stuff. And essentially, they did like this 50-minute video breaking down why undoing the snap was a bad thing for the overall population because of things like the economy, supply and demand. It sucks. But what I love about this episode, it starts off slow. Sam is ironing his shirt. He's getting ready to go to what looks like a funeral because in the previews, he has the black suit on, a white shirt, black tie. It seemed like, oh, wow, it must be like a memorial for Steve Rogers. But no, that's not what happens. He has like an internal monologue of what Cap was saying, or excuse me, what Steve Rogers was saying, old man Rogers was saying at the end of Endgame about the shield and how it's his, but it doesn't feel like it belongs to him and whatnot. And we get a spectacular 10-minute action sequence that felt like, the people I've talked with said the same thing. damn, this is why I wish more theaters were open, because the opening scene where Falcon takes down a group of terrorists from LAF was amazing. I wish I could have saw that on the big screen. I keep rewinding the first 10 minutes of the episode because it was that spectacular. What do they call them? Like flying squirrels? Basically, you know, when people jump out of helicopters with these jumpsuits that look like they're flying squirrels to escape. And I'm like, y'all try to do that to the perfect Avenger for the job who literally has freaking wings. Y'all trying to get away from the Falcon in aerial battle, which was spectacular, by the way. Essentially, Sam has actually been working with the Air Force over the past 6 months since he returned from the blip. And he's trying to stop a familiar character who was actually in the opening of Captain America, the Winter Soldier. I believe his name, Bartok the Leaper. And he was basically trying to rescue a Air Force member who was held hostage, and his partner on this was Jaquin Torres, who's actually in the comic books. When Sam became Captain America in the comics, this particular character became the Falcon. So basically, I cannot describe this scene to give it justice. You have to watch the first 10 minutes of the episode. Watch the entire episode, but if you watch the first 10 minutes, you'll get it. Red Wing is helping out. I mean, it was spectacular to watch, from the stealth moves that Sam was using. I mean, I get it. I mean, the whole thing is like, I bet this entire series is about Sam feeling confident enough to become Captain America. But I'm like, I get in the comics he has the shield, but I'm like, bro, he uses his wings as a damn shield pretty damn efficiently. I remember he did that at the beginning of Civil War, but whatever. So eventually, the whole mission is to get the hostage before they get to, I believe, Iraq borders. I forgot the exact country, but remember, there are certain airspaces that, you know, American forces aren't allowed in, not to mention, I was thinking the whole time, Lord, I hope this doesn't go back to the Sokovia Accord. So basically, if Sam didn't rescue this dude before they crossed a certain border, he would have been screwed. But at the last minute, he was able to use those heat-seeking missiles against his enemies and succeed. And the Leaper actually escaped, which is kind of ironic because he was leaping from one helicopter to the next. But it was a spectacular aerial fight. I loved it. All right, so we actually got a slow scene where, you know, Sam is talking with Mr. Torres. They're pretty much, you know, recapping what happened on the mission. Sam's trying to fix his tech. Apparently, whenever the military tries to fix his Falcon gear, it ends up shorting out, because there were a couple of times during the fight where his suit was starting to fail. But thankfully, he was able to get it back on track, which has me wondering, like the guy said, it was Stark Tech, so it's probably too sophisticated for those people to figure out, but could they be trying to sabotage Sam? So basically, after that, we go to DC, and Rhodey was actually in the episode. I know Don Cheadle confirmed he was going to be in Falcon Winter Soldier, and remember, he's going to have his own series, Armor Wars, which I believe in the comics has to do with Tony Stark's tech being used by the wrong hand. So with Stark dead, it wouldn't be a surprise if some of his inventions, his tech, his ideas were being used by bad people, and it's up to Rhodey to stop him. So he's there. It's a memorial at the Smithsonian Museum. I think this is where it took place. Sam was basically giving the shield back to the government to be on the Captain America display. And Rhodey is talking to him after his speech about how, why didn't you take up the mantle? And, you know, Sam's like, nah, I don't think I'm the right guy for the job. Not to mention, when Steve was on ice, you know, the world did pretty well without Captain America. They don't need him now. But, you know, Rhodey's like, look, times are different, man. We need a symbol out there. And what I loved about this scene was two brothers just talking. I mean, I don't think the only time I recall Sam and Rhodey having a scene together was in Civil War, and they were going back and forth about the Accords. But keep in mind, this was when all the Avengers were in the room, minus Hulk and Thor, because of course they were off world. But it's just cool to see these two brothers just having a stroll and talking and reminiscing. I like that a lot. So basically after that, we actually catch up with Bucky, and it turns out he was actually pardoned from his crimes as the Winter Soldier. And I believe Sam's in the same situation in regards to the Accords, because, well, they helped to save the damn world. And plus, with him working with the Air Force, it's safe to say that, he's on good terms with the government somewhat. So he's actually in therapy, and Bucky is in a situation where he's trying to live in what year is it? Is it 2023? I believe is where the MCU is currently at, because it's 2023. So basically, kind of like Steve when he came out of the ice, he's trying to somehow adjust to the world he's in now. I guess the difference is with Steve, he was hung up on the past 70 years that he lost, so he kind of threw himself back into war, working with S.H.I.E.L.D. in order to find a purpose in life, because all of his friends and family and whatnot were dead, because, obviously he was on ice and they lived on. And with Bucky, it's not him just having to deal with living in the present. He has to deal with the nightmares. Shuri was able to erase the code words and triggers that would allow people to control Bucky. However, she wasn't able to, or at least to my knowledge, scrap all the memories, because as Bucky said to Tony in Civil War, I remember all of them. So he remembers all the people he's killed. So he actually wakes up from a nightmare in his apartment, a very small apartment, about, killing some people for Hydra. And then he killed a young man who appeared to just be an innocent bystander at the wrong place at the wrong time. So he saw what the Winter Soldier did, meaning that he had to be eliminated. So during the therapy, we see that Bucky's trying to make amends. He has a little book, kind of like Steve in Winter Soldier. He's crossing things off. For Bucky, it's kind of like a redemption list. And he's actually been ignoring text messages from Sam. I felt attacked by the therapist. Like, you don't even have 10 phone numbers in your phone. I'm like, well, neither do I. I got my parents, my sister, nephew, and the home phone. Technically, that's 4 if you count the house phone. Is like, well, the house phone is something everybody answers, Jeremy. So everybody in your phone would answer that phone. So, yeah. And so basically, it's about, Bucky trying to live his life. And he actually appears to have a friendship with an older gentleman. And they go to lunch together. And the older guy, tells the waitress that Bucky wants to take her out. And it's kind of funny because we actually learned that he's actually the father of the young man who Bucky killed when he was the Winter Soldier, the young man who was at the wrong place at the wrong time. And during his date, he felt guilt about it because, the girls asked him, how old are you? 106, 108? Oh, I'm kidding. And essentially, he goes to see the old man because she brings up, wow, I don't know. It's like, when a parent loses their children, they're an orphan. When a wife loses the husband, it's a widow. But what do you call a parent who lost their child? So it kind of like caused him to snap, not get angry, but just go off and talk to the old man. But as soon as he opens the door and sees that there's a memorial for the son on like the shelf, he kind of chickens out, so he walks away. So basically, it seems that Bucky was going to tell the man, what he did, what he didn't. So essentially, we go over to the Flag Smashers, who seem to be the villainous group of the series. And Therese, the young man who was helping Sam at the beginning of the fight sequence, he apparently got mixed up in a bank robbery in order to get intel on what this group was doing. And this is in Switzerland. But unfortunately, he gets his ass kicked when he tries to arrest one of the members who appears to have superhuman strength. So we go over to Sam. And aside from the action piece, this was probably my favorite part of the episode. I believe Anthony Mackie is from Louisiana. And it just felt so real. What I mean by that is just the scenes between his sister, his 2 nephews, and the family fishing business they have. Basically, they're having a hard time because, while Sam was blip, his sister was taking care of her two sons, keeping the family business afloat. No pun intended, because of the boat. So it's a hard time because she's trying to like, hey, we need to sell this boat and the house to make ends meet. Sam doesn't want it. He's like, hey, I own half of this stuff just like you. When our parents left it to us, we're not selling. But she's like, look, I was holding it down alone for 5 years. Things have changed. We need to move on. So he has the idea like, look, I did the research. I counted the numbers. If we can get this consolidate this alone, we can flip everything around. I think he said like, turn the fishing business into something else, like, rent out the boat on like, little mini cruises, if you will, trying to, make things for the better. So in a funny yet tragic scene. They go to the bank, and then the banker is like, or the loan officer is like, I recognize you. And he's like, oh, the Falcon, the Falcon. So while he's trying to, help his sister out with the loan, the banker's just asking questions about, so I always wanted to be an Avenger. Can I get a selfie? How did you make money? How did you get paid? Because that's actually a valid question. I mean, in the comic books, Tony Stark actually had the Avengers on payroll. So it wasn't like they were millionaires or billionaires like him, but they were being paid for their services, to say the least. That's the easiest way to put it. But in the show, and I had some very good conversations with some friends about this. My opinion, I wouldn't be surprised if Tony did kind of give these heroes like some kind of pay. I don't think the likes of like Thor or anyone like that would even need the money or care. But essentially, I know in Age of Ultron, he told Maria Hill about how, oh no, he's the boss, referring to Steve. I just pay for everything and make everybody else look cooler. So when I'm thinking about Falcon, for example, here's what I think. Even if Sam was on some sort of payroll with Tony Stark via, the Avengers, and essentially, after he joined Cap's side in Civil War, I think he would have been cut off. And then the next time that, Sam, Natasha, Wanda, and Steve showed up was in Infinity War, which was 2 years later. So imagine this. He's fighting in Infinity War and he gets blipped. He gets brought back in Endgame, but next thing you know, Tony Stark is dead. And to my knowledge, I don't even know if the Avengers actually exist anymore because, the Avengers are already broken up post Civil War. And then in Infinity War, because they were separated, they got their asses kicked. And then in Endgame, Cap was like Avengers Assemble, and that pretty much encompassed everyone. So I don't think there's like a solid team to call upon at this point. Sure, you got the Captain Marvel off in space, Thor's off with the Guardians, Doctor Strange is, keeping the multiverse safe, even though he didn't show up in WandaVision. And, Spider-Man's doing his thing. So I don't really see how Sam would have gotten any kind of payment due to the fact that he was a fugitive, even though now he's been pardoned. So he is working with the Air Force, but I don't think he's making enough money to, save the family. But then again, based on what his sister was saying, how, look, when Dad was getting sick, we agreed you handle things out there because, you're all fighting battles and all with the military and now the Avengers. I'll do things my way. So I think that even if Sam had whatever amount of money was necessary to save the boat and everything, his sister wouldn't accept it. So I think that they really need the loan. However, since the blip happened, a lot of people, basically the economy tightened its grip and it wasn't so keen on loaning out money, considering what do you do when the person trying to get a loan hasn't had income in 5 years because, they didn't exist. So it really felt grounded there. And so we end up the episode with, Therese calling Sam about what happened in Switzerland, and then his sister tells him to watch the TV because the government actually chose a new Captain America, John Walker. I was like, yo, because when Sam gave up the shield, the dude who announced the new Captain America, he was like, you're doing the right thing, Sam. And then you hand it all to a white guy. And it's like, wow. So overall, this was a good episode. I'll probably watch it again when I'm editing my videos in a couple hours here, but yeah, I enjoyed it. This was a great start. I know there's 5 episodes left. Sam and Bucky didn't even meet up in this episode, but that's okay. We don't need to rush anything. These episodes are almost an hour long each, which I really think is good. So let me know your thoughts on Captain America. Future Captain America, because I honestly think this entire series is Sam coming to grips with the fact that he is worthy of the shield, and Steve wouldn't have handed him the mantle if he didn't believe Sam was ready to pick it up. So let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Do you want me to continue to review this series? I mean, if this video gets at least 1,000 views, I'll definitely be like, yo, I'm going to be doing these. So yeah. And if you would like to subscribe, I'd really appreciate it. Or donate to the channel, feel free to do so on PayPal or Cash App. Thanks so much for tuning in, and I'll talk to you soon.